Have you ever felt like life is just passing right in front of your eyes and you aren't doing a single thing about it? You know the drill. You wake up late, start doom scrolling on your phone, tell yourself you're going to play just one more game or watch just one more short. You tell yourself, I'll start in a little bit. But let's be real, that little bit never actually comes. And by the end of the day, you're lying there asking yourself that familiar, incredibly heavy question, what are you doing with your life? Now, most people are just going to call this laziness. They'll tell you to manage your time better. But here is the fascinating truth. This chronic avoidance, it has absolutely nothing to do with laziness. It is actually a very deep, hidden part of your mind, quietly, desperately avoiding growing up. So welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to step into a clinical, psychological deep dive into the mind of what's often called the man-child. Now, I have to be completely upfront with you here. The information we're unpacking today might not be super easy to hear. It might make you a bit uncomfortable and, well, it could definitely hit your ego a little bit. But if you're someone who values focused learning and the direct truth, this is the exact wake-up call you need to truly snap out of that cycle. So let's get right into it.
Part 1. Not lazy. The eternal boy.
Okay, let's dive into this. The legendary psychoanalyst Carl Jung actually used a Latin term for this exact state, puer aeternus, which translates to the eternal boy. In everyday language, you might hear it called Peter Pan syndrome, though unfortunately it comes without the cool ability to fly. Now, when someone is caught in this syndrome, it absolutely does not mean they're unintelligent. In fact, they usually have incredibly sharp instincts and tons of great ideas. But their defining characteristic is this extreme desire for absolute freedom. And to them, freedom means not being tied down, not being responsible for anyone. It's like a giant puzzle where they want to keep every single door of opportunity wide open, but the tragedy is they never actually walk through any of them.
Moving on to Part 2. Living a provisional life.
Jung described this as living the provisional life. It's this constant nagging feeling that whatever you are doing right now is just a temporary placeholder. It's kind of like you feel it's not your real life yet. So you might work an office job, but you tell yourself it's just a temporary gig to pay the bills. Meanwhile, deep down, you're convinced you're actually an undiscovered genius just waiting for your true calling. You live in a messy room, but you don't clean it because, hey, it's just a temporary place, right? You might even treat relationships this way, never fully committing because you are holding out for a perfect path. Because everything feels so temporary, you literally never put your full heart into anything. And this brilliantly illustrates the core illusion of this mindset. You watch other people throw themselves into life. They work, they fail, they get married, they move up, and your ego whispers to you that they are just trapped in the rat race, while you are somehow above it all. But staying in the stands isn't true freedom. It's a defense mechanism. You choose to be a spectator to completely avoid the harsh realities of life. Paying bills, facing rejection, and accepting that to get anywhere, you actually have to start from zero and risk looking foolish.
Which brings us to Part 3. The gifted child trap.
So, where does this chronic fear of growing up actually come from? To figure this out, we look to Marie-Louise von Franz, a brilliant colleague of Carl Jung. She pointed out a really surprising truth. Most men who fall into this syndrome were actually very gifted kids. Think about it. Maybe you were the smartest kid in your class, learning everything quickly with basically zero effort. You got tons of praise, you were labeled special. But those early compliments accidentally created a very dangerous psychological trap. You built your entire sense of self-worth around having great potential. And because of that fragile ego, the real, messy world suddenly feels like a direct, terrifying threat to your identity.
So the crucial point is the massive ego shock that happens when these gifted kids transition into adulthood. In school life, your raw potential gets you instant A's and gold stars. But in real life, potential is absolutely meaningless on its own. The real world only rewards results, persistence, and the ability to bounce back from failure. When a gifted person starts a new job and makes a mistake, or sees others doing better than them, man, it hurts deeply. It completely shatters that illusion that they are somehow special. And to protect that wounded ego, your mind activates an automatic defense mechanism, procrastination. By delaying a project or holding off on that job application or not writing that book, you are fiercely protecting the illusion of your own greatness. Your ego gets to comfortably sit back and say, well, I haven't succeeded yet simply because I haven't really tried. If I tried, I'd definitely be the best. Procrastination isn't laziness. It's a shield to keep you from finding out how good you actually are right now.
We pull a modern-day Icarus whenever we confuse grand potential with real achievement. You know the story of Icarus, right? He was given wax wings and thought he was untouchable, refusing to respect his own limits. He flew way too close to the sun, the wax melted, and he crashed. You can dream about flying high all you want, but if you haven't first trained yourself through small tasks and learned how to walk steadily on the ground, reality is going to shatter you the moment you touch it. Part 4. 3 Traps of Avoidance. When the gap between this grand fantasy and your actual reality keeps growing, it leads straight into a self-destructive spiral. The first trap is numbing your awareness. Instead of solving a problem, you dive into a 10-hour gaming marathon or endlessly scroll social media, convincing yourself you're just unwinding. But these aren't entertainment. They are psychological anesthetics. They're just silencing the alarm bells of your stagnant life. Trap 2 is the fear of long-term commitment. When a relationship demands real responsibility, the eternal boy panics, pulls away, and often forces their partner to carry the heavy emotional and financial weight of the whole shebang. And trap 3 is the victim mentality, where every outside pressure feels like a personal attack. Think of it like the story of Peter Pan. Peter Pan always sees the adult Captain Hook as the evil enemy. But in reality, Captain Hook represents your boss, the rules of society, and the unavoidable ticking clock of time pushing you to finally grow up. If you blame the economy or complain that the job market is just unfair, you are handing over all control of your life to your circumstances. You stay trapped in the land of avoidance, completely powerless. And finally, part 5. How to finally grow up. Look, recognizing these traps isn't about beating yourself up. It's all about empowerment. Once you see this invisible enemy, you have the power to finally step out of the cocoon. Let's move to and see how this builds into a concrete 4-step actionable framework required to become an adult. This is about real, grounded action, not just theory. Step 1 is completely reframing how you view adulthood. The eternal child thinks getting a job and taking on responsibility will kill their creativity and make them boring. But the truth is the exact opposite. Without discipline, a brilliant business idea just stays on paper forever. Talent without routine simply vanishes into thin air. Responsibility isn't a chain. It is the solid foundation, the absolute strongest protective wall that allows your creative ideas to actually survive and thrive out there in the real world. Step 2 is to bravely embrace being ordinary. You have to break the illusion that daily chores are beneath your special status. Pull your mind down from the clouds by doing ordinary tasks with intense seriousness. Clean your room, wash your clothes, pay your bills, and do it, actually scratch that. Do it in total silence. Don't throw on a podcast or music to escape the moment. Focus completely on the action. By taking a normal job seriously, you are directly interacting with reality and proving to yourself that the world doesn't stop just because you aren't ready. Step 3 is practicing exposure therapy with failure. Since the core fear here is finding out you aren't good enough, you have to actively, intentionally face that fear. Finish that resume and send it out to 5 companies, fully knowing you might get rejected. Ask your boss for honest, brutal feedback. A man's character isn't shaped by winning arguments in his own imagination. It is forged by falling down in real life, brushing the dust off, and moving forward. Getting rejected doesn't mean your life is over. It means your life has actually begun. Finally, step 4, find an outside accountability structure. Look, the eternal child is an absolute expert at negotiating with himself. When things get hard, your brain will easily invent 100 perfectly logical-sounding excuses to just crawl back into bed. Relying on willpower alone will fail, for sure. You need a mentor, a demanding boss, or a community of disciplined peers who will not pamper your procrastination. You need an external environment that forces you to keep your feet firmly planted on the ground when all you want to do is fly away into fantasy. Now, these steps aren't easy, but they are the only way to pull yourself into reality. I want to leave you with this incredibly powerful, absolute mic drop of a thought from Carl Jung. He said, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of its parents." If you keep avoiding reality, if you keep living a temporary, provisional life, you aren't just wasting your own time. You risk passing that exact same helplessness and deep regret onto the next generation. So the big question is, are you going to stay comfortable in the stands watching your potential fade away? Or are you finally ready to step onto the field? Stop waiting for the perfect moment and start building your real life today.